Are there any corrections to the minutes from last meeting? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. We have 3 DOT resolutions on the agenda today.
Would you mind if Penny
Alice is
come?
here.
Penny sits with me because I know you're going to have a question on the second one, and she's going to help explain it. Good morning, everyone. Marty Voss with the Department of Transportation. This is Penny Donahue, I can call you our CFO. In our world, she's the Chief Financial Officer for DOT. So the first one is, this is the extension of our 5-year agreement with the state. So what we're doing is actually 2 things today. We don't have a number for the second resolution because you have to pass the first one first before we can, it builds off item B builds off of item A. So item A is authorizing a 5-year extension through 2029 of our agreement with the New York State Department of Transportation to plow their roads for them. And as many of you know, we actually charge them back an actual rate. So we actually keep track of labor, materials, fuel, etc., which we are then able to get reimbursed directly for from the state. So the first one simply authorizes us to continue that agreement for 5 more years with the state. State Comptroller requires a reauthorization of that once every 5 years. We will still have to come back every year once we know the dollar amounts and have those authorized by the legislature as well. But the State Comptroller's office is nothing if not thorough. They want to have these in place to show that these are legitimate agreements between the municipality and the state. So that's what the first one is.
Any changes from previous?
Yes, and I was gonna, so what it's doing basically is you remember we adjusted our titles and our labor rates in the 2022 or 3 budget, and we upgraded everyone in the field who's involved with snow operations by 2 pay grades, and we now use the state titles, the same as the State Department of Transportation and the Thruway Authority, which you can do once to make those title changes. So now our entry level is no longer a grade 5, it's now a grade 7. But this is the natural progression of that. It now translates into our contracts with the state so that we're getting reimbursed at the proper labor rate. And then obviously the price of salt and fuel fluctuates with the market, but the labor rate we can predict a little more closely because we know what our pay rates are now versus what they were then. And we also know what our expected increases are because we have a collective bargaining agreement that determines what those raises are. So that's all baked into the new agreement with the state.
Still have the severity factor built in?
The state we haven't had severity factor in a number of years.
Right.
They reference it, but they're starting to, it's still referenced in the contract, but it's not, hasn't been used in
A couple of years at least.
several years now, yeah.
We haven't reached a severity of 1 since 2019.
Okay.
So it hasn't.
It hasn't mattered, and frankly, I think
we had a paid out severity factor was in the 18-19 snow season.
it's actually better for us if we get a direct cost reimbursement, because as you know, we're held to a very high standard with the state in terms of the frequency and the plowing and the amount of materials we use. You know, in an ideal world, we would hold the villages and towns to that same standard. But there's the practical matter of the staffing that all of us have.
Sure.
So, you know, already this winter, we've seen a couple little minor hiccups in certain parts of the county south of here that maybe weren't as prepared for the storm as we would have liked them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this automatically renews at the same, and then we amend it to increase the cost.
Correct.
Is the contract basically the same with every county?
Yeah. We don't have a lot of latitude to change it.
Yeah.
Well,
just like we do with the towns.
Yeah,
It's all
there's
the same.
62 of us,
Yeah.
so it is what it is, whether we like it or not. And frankly, the 5-year is good because then we're locked in. And if the modifications we have to make are just budgetary, we can do that
We can plan.
with you guys pretty quickly. So that's 1A.
What's the balance on their roads that we plow versus our roads that they plow? Is that about break
So
even?
round numbers, we have 800 miles of county highway that we're responsible for, all of us. We do a little over 200 for the state. So we're doing 31, 11, 80, 20, some of the bigger main thoroughfares and arterials in the county. We parse off somewhere in the neighborhood of 360 something, am I right, am I close? To the towns and villages, which are the more neighborhood streets and the more smaller, minor roads. But because of the way it works out and the mileage, it actually works out to be a little bit better than break even for us. And the state, it's so crazy when you look at the labor rates because they're actually inverse to what you would think they should be. The towns and villages pay more than the county, and the county pays more than the state. But the hours of work and the overtime are greater as you go the opposite way.
Sure.
So it's a little bit confusing.
Balancing act, yeah.
It is a balancing act. That's a very good term for it. But the, you know, at the end of the day, we think we're in the sweet spot and we found the happy medium where we can make it work. You know, the state, realistically, we were joking about it this morning. They're doing 690, 81, 481, and the Thruway Authority does the Thruway.
Yeah.
But we're still, Onondaga County is still the largest operation in the region. We have, you know, Snooki asked this morning at our staff meeting, how many trucks do we have out? You know, and that answer changes. Usually my answer, if it's a reporter, is all of them. But during a storm, fully staffed, fully loaded, we have about 60 trucks out. In a heavy storm, I think the state's around 25. So, and then the towns and villages are and the city's comparable, but that's a totally different situation because they've got a totally different challenge in front of them. You know, it's much more delicate work in the city of Syracuse.
Interesting. Thanks.
Okay.
Move it.
Dave, thank you.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Okay, so item one, thank you very much. Item 1B, and this is where I got confused because if you take the estimated base amount and then what we're looking to increase it to, it doesn't equal, the difference isn't 831. So what this is the amendment for the current 2024-2025 budget year. We had to, because of our labor rates and because of our material costs, we have to increase the appropriation amount that we can bill the state for. Epic snowstorm, epic winter, worst case scenario. We have to increase the amount in that account to cover the cost. We're not sure yet that we're gonna have all that, we're gonna expose all that, we're gonna use all that labor. So we're not gonna ask for the full, it was over $1 million. So Penny scaled it back to 80% of that, which comes up to $831,998, which will cover our labor costs with what we would consider a normal winter this year, not the aberration we've had the last 4 years, but a typical winter of, you know, close to 100 inches of snow. So we don't want to outkick our coverage a little bit too much here and say that we need, you know, all this extra money moved over to cover it when we're not sure we're going to even need it or get it back from the state. If for some reason in January or February we get to a point where, you know, it's been really bad, we've had 16-hour shifts and we're just going, we'll come back and ask to move more money. But for now, the decision was made that 80% was reasonable, and any of that isn't spent will. It's just an appropriation, so it's not going to affect our overall budget.
Yeah, we originally, in 2025, we originally budgeted the state snow and ice contract at 3.4 million, roughly, based on the previous contract. They approached us with the 5-year extension after October, so after we had already passed the 2025.
Sure.
So basically what I'm looking to do is to increase that 3.4 million to roughly 4.2 million, which is 80% of the total contract amount of 5.3. And 80% is based on past years, is a decent,
It's a safe number.
in case of Snowmageddon, we would still get the 5.3. The balance of the difference in revenue would just go to offset local dollars.
That golden snowball has to come home eventually.
That'll be a heck of a, it would be a heck of a
Roll
snow.
out
Yeah.
there.
We can still get paid by New York State up to 5.3.
I'm hoping to at least get the snowmobiles out of the shed this year. Where does that come, does that come out of the 831? What is that? Is that fund balance or where does that come out of?
Well,
Or
but
are we
it's
just transferring
reimbursable,
over?
no, it'll be reimbursable through New York State.
Okay,
It's New York State revenue. We are not, yes, this is not in any way, shape, or form local dollars. It's in anticipation of what New York State is going to reimburse us for the snow season.
I'm over.
So it's just, thank you.
Sure. That's not easy. All in favor?
Sure, thank you, Penny. Ben Yaus is gonna sit with me for this one, because it should be easy, but just in case, I'm not that smart. So this is Kinney Street in the town of DeWitt. And lo and behold, we discovered while working on a drainage complaint this summer that we own this little trapezoid of land. And through conversations with our field engineer and the owner of the adjacent business, which is the only business that has access to this property because of the way the roads are built, he would like to purchase that, what I would call vestigial piece of land from us, to expand his parking lot. And we are more than happy to accommodate that. This is something that we typically do when we discover these little parcels. What normally happens, this is Legislator Kinney, who's no longer here, but would remember, we had a similar experience with this is how the Geddes ball fields got built. The state comes in and they decide they're gonna put a highway in, they're gonna build a bypass, and they have this leftover land at the end of a project. In this case, it was 298, and they don't wanna have leftover land that they're responsible for, so the next best thing is to just give it to the county. And some county executive 40 years ago said, yeah, sure, why not, and signed it. And then nobody really thought about it again until there was a drainage issue, and then we started having law department dig through maps, and we're like, oh, we do own it. So lo and behold, the owner is a longtime business owner in the Central New York community. He's a good guy and wanted to see if we could work something out. We went through the legal process that the law department has for real estate, and they came up with a price that everyone can live with. It's in the county's interest to get this stuff off the books in terms of liability, because if the business owner is there using it and something happens, potentially we could be party to that. We have no use for it going forward because it doesn't attach to a road anymore. It hasn't for 30-something years. So it just makes a lot of sense to get these things ironed out and off the books when we can. So that's what this is. The business is Brown Carbonics, and the owner's name is Roger E. Sal.
Sally.
And in fairness, Ben has been the one who handled 99% of this, other than the talking about it at the legislature. So I'll let him add anything.
Yeah, I'll just say this is part of, since Marty took over, this is kind of part of our reevaluating the county road system, dead ends. I'm calling them the vestigial appendages, you know, they just, we've sort of gotten stuck with them over the years, either through road changes, state work, and we just end up with these little bits of property that end up being more of a liability than they're worth. So we'll see maybe a couple of those advance as we go. They all sort of move slowly, but it's more as you see them, and there's an interest. So I apologize. I did think we could go on to Google Earth on this, and we can't. So I will bring Google Earth images if it's easier for you guys. It's kind of hard to visualize an area just on the little block here, but it is a dead end portion of Kinney, and it's just sort of this surplus land between the state highway and a dead end portion of Kinney. That's just sort of a gravel. Unused surplus portion of county property. So if you remember, we did it fairly recently in 2021 with Manager's Place, which was a road around
United Auto.
United Auto.
It used to be TNC Warehouse,
Yep.
and they had other tenants there, and there were people in and out, but United he owns the whole thing now, and they're the only business operating there, and they wanted control of the road for access, so buy it, do what you want with it.
Makes sense. And he can use it for parking lot, so that's a win.
Well, they can be responsible for plowing it.
Right.
And liability.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So you open the money in-house.
Yeah. I've known Roger Sally a long time and Brown Carbonic. They actually provide beverage service to the Lafayette Apple Festival.
All right, there you go.
So held every year on Columbus Day weekend. I'll move it.
Thank you, Dave. All in favor? Aye. Sounds good.
Thank you, folks. So, and these all gotta go to, these all gotta go away. This week?
Oh, carbonated beverage.
Okay, now it makes